Thank you for joining FMT at this year's nVerge conference. My name is Wade Walker. I'm the Director of IT and Customer Care, and I'm the Practice Director for Office 365 and Azure at FMT. We're excited to have you here. We appreciate you taking time out of your day to join us. Before I start my session on breaking up with your on-premise server and falling in love with Azure, I want to let you know a little bit more about our nVerge sessions. nVerge 2016 is titled nVerge in the Cloud. We've been hosting nVerge on an annual basis for a few years, and to make it easier for you this year, we decided to move it into the cloud. This year we're having 14 sessions with a focus on our core solutions from Microsoft, NetSuite, and SAP Business by Design. We're having a session on Azure, which is why you're here. We had one earlier today on Office 365, which is an online service for email, file, telecommunications, and more. Session on SharePoint, collaboration and content, including its integration with Office 365. Microsoft's Dynamics CRM, their customer relationship management platform. Microsoft's future product, Dynamics 365, which is their one platform for ERP, CRM, and more. Their existing small and business ERP solution, Dynamics Great Plains, and I'm starting to run out of space here. We've got Power BI, Power Business Intelligence Solution, and SQL Server. Obviously, that's a lot that we're covering today. For a while there, I thought my slide wasn't going to hold everything. As you can tell, FMT consultants can support the majority of your technology needs, and we've got them listed here on this slide. I'm sorry, my fingers went a little bit crazy. Our customer care department supports all these technologies for our clients who are interested in support on any of these solutions and solutions that are outside of the scope of what we've listed. Each customer is provided with a customer portal, and we have a variety of support plans and training options to service our customers. If you're interested in hearing more about any of these, please ask us in the chat window. We have moderators monitoring the chat window, and we'll respond to you either in line or I'll get back to you at the end of this session. You can also go to the FMT website at www.fmtconsultants.com, and then for more information on nVerge 2016, you can go to our website /nVerge. nVerge would not be possible without our sponsors, so I'd like to thank our diamond sponsors, Avalara and Purely Cloud, our gold sponsors, Awingu, Solver, and My Apps Anywhere, and our silver partners, Integrity Data, RecLogic, Click Dimensions, Titanium GP, Dimension Funding, and Alltech. Our website has additional information on each of these sponsors. In addition, I'd like to thank our partners, Microsoft, NetSuite, and SAP. As I mentioned earlier, my name is Wade Walker, and I'm the Director of IT Services, Customer Care, and the Practice Director for Office 365 and Azure. Little background on me. Lived a few lives, including getting a chemistry degree at the University of San Diego. I'm a homer for USD, so you might hear some Truro references. I landed my first job performing some chemistry research at Salk Institute here in San Diego on the AIDS drug AZT. From there, I became an intellectual property expert in drugs and the pharmaceutical industry, which is where I transitioned to my work Nirvana, which is the IT industry, over 20 years ago. And you can find me on LinkedIn. I look forward to getting a connection from you. And what seems like a not too long ago time, I was an early adopter of some bleeding edge solutions, some canary in the coal mine options that were a little bit more on the left side of this slide. So these solutions were Placeware, Hosted Exchange, Business Productivity Online Services, a Cloud Blob service, and more. Today, these solutions have evolved much more to the right side of the picture, and we know them now as Azure, Office 365, Skype for Business, and more. Those are pioneering days. Pioneers tend to get eaten, but I'm still here, and I'm glad you're here so we can discuss what we're going to accomplish today. So what are we going to accomplish today? We're going to start with discussing relationships. Specifically, we're going to discuss relationship with on-premise servers and how you can break up with them and marry up to the Azure Cloud. For those of you that know me, I've been told that I've married up very well many times. We're also going to discuss maximizing your relationship opportunities. Falling in love with Azure gives you way more opportunities for success than your on-premise software, on-premise hardware. We're also going to discuss some Azure Cloud examples that illustrate how an Azure relationship is good for you and your business. And lastly, by improving these relationships, we're going to make you look good. When you look good, your department looks good, your company looks good, your investors are happy, and your customers are happy. As with any relationship, your involvement is key. Communication is important, so please use the chat window to input any questions you have, and we'll respond either in line or at the end of the meeting. So why would you want to break up with your on-premise solutions and fall in love with the cloud? There have to be some benefits, right? Some of the key benefits of the Microsoft Azure Cloud include flexible and open, the capability to have a flexible and open relationship with the cloud, gives you ability to pivot on demand as needed. More benefits include the protection of your investment in the cloud, and managing your identity and your employees' identities in the cloud. At the end of this session, we're going to have time for Q&A. Before we get there, I'm going to do a quick poll. So let me pull the poll up for everybody. And this poll is titled, what percentage of your technology solutions are in the cloud? Let's give everybody about 30 seconds to answer that. And I'll put myself on mute until that's done. Well, thank you for that. Looking at the poll results, we've got 40% of people have 0 to 25% in the cloud. Bear with me, I need to read. Okay, about 40% of the people are 0 to 25% in the cloud. We've got 20% that are a quarter to a halfway there. And the other 40% are between 3/4 and 100% of the way there. So thank you for that. We'll touch on that near the end of the slide, or the end of this presentation. So the benefits of the Microsoft Azure Cloud, it is the wave of the future. It's already here, so you better catch it. Earlier this month, Synergy Research Group announced that Microsoft has become the overall market leader in the public cloud software as a service market. Overall, this industry's year-over-year growth is at 33%. It's already a $40 billion a year industry. Synergy forecasts that this market is going to more than triple in 5 years. So I recommend you catch the wave. Your competitors that are thriving have caught it. Your competitors that haven't are already behind the curve. Software is eating the world. You may have heard this a few times. This has been spoken a lot by Mark Andreessen, inventor of the modern web browser, Mosaic, and Netscape Navigator. So for those of us that were using those products back then, we remember that well. Mark's now a partner at the venture capital firm Andreessen Horowitz, and their portfolio includes Facebook, Twitter, Lyft, Airbnb, Box, and more. Mark's been saying for quite some time that software is eating the world. If you've heard of Moore's Law, which talked about technology processing doubling every 12 months, what Mark's been recently talking about is the inverse of that, is that technology processing is relatively static every 18 months, but the costs are decreasing in half every 18 months. As such, the cost for these solutions continues to decrease, and more features are being added to these solutions on a daily basis. Since software is eating the world, we need to improve our relationship with the cloud and lessen our relationship with our on-site hardware such as servers. This is where the cloud relationship starts to get involved in the capital expenses versus operating expenses discussion at your company. There are a myriad of financial calculators out there that drive home the return on investment, the ROI of using the cloud. Instead of presenting on one of the many ROI calculators, I'm going to share with you one of my experiences, and it'll drive home this point very clearly. Email. About 10 years ago, I was running email systems for about 600 coworkers in the United States, Canada, England, Germany, and the Netherlands. This included a failover cluster at one site and byte-based replication of servers within each of the other sites. The capital expense was rather significant. As you can see here, it was over $500,000. This also included operating expenses, recurring annual operating expenses of over $100,000 for support and maintenance contracts. Would I run this same solution today? Well, if I were to project this out to today, to 2016, and I had 600 mailboxes, and I was still multinational, I wouldn't run it the same. Instead, I'd use Office 365, which leverages many of aspects of Azure. My outlay, capital expense outlay, would be $0, and my recurring annual expenses would be $144,000 for the software licenses. As you can see, this is kind of a slam dunk argument as to the difference in costs for a cloud-based solution and a premise-based solution. If you did have the chance earlier today to attend our Office 365 session, Realize Your Full Potential with Office 365, you heard about some of this. If not, let us know in the chat window and we'll send you the link to that session. In addition to the costs that I've listed, 2016 options for Office 365 also include file sharing with OneDrive, intranet and collaboration with SharePoint, and online meetings, instant messaging, and voice over IP connectivity with Skype. As you can see, the cost difference here is significant, and in 10 years, from 10 years ago to now, it's made very clear that moving to the cloud is a very cost-effective solution for solutions such as email, file sharing, list goes on. And all of this is great if the solutions you have are already in the cloud, but for those of you who are asking, how do I get there? The question is, have you moved to the cloud? For some of the people on this presentation, the answer is yes, but not everything. So for those of us that haven't moved everything there, you've probably made a significant investment in your own on-premise solutions and you want to get your maximum life out of them. And that's okay, you can move one solution at a time. Good news is, moving doesn't require a truck. Remember earlier when I mentioned software is eating the world? It's eating trucks too. No joke, a long time ago I was using a truck when I needed to move my data to the cloud. I started backing up data to the cloud a while ago, just about 6-7 years ago, and at that time the vendor employed a shuttle service which consisted of them shipping hard drives to me filling up the hard drives with my data, a truck picking up all this data and getting it overnight, which obviously includes a plane too, and then importing their data from the hard drives to the cloud data center. This was a very laborious process, time-consuming process, and the amount of effort just to synchronize the data between the two sites was rather significant. Nowadays, Azure is your moving truck. You read that correctly, it is your moving truck. Our relationship with the cloud allows us to use Azure as a moving truck to move your data to the cloud. And if you're using Office 365 and Azure in conjunction, this combined relationship makes moving to the cloud even easier. The combination of these two solutions is a great team. The sum is greater than the parts. And now we're going to switch gears to another relationship benefit of Azure, flexible and open. I think we'd all agree that flexible and open relationships are much easier than rigid and closed ones. What is flexible and open? With flexibility, you get relationship options such as pay-as-you-go or pay-as-you-consume, scalability, and more. Open relationships allow you to use non-Microsoft products. You can commingle these products with your Microsoft stuff, and you get to go shopping for some of these solutions at what's known as the Azure Marketplace. For an example of a flexible solution, let's talk about seasonal demand. For businesses that have seasonal demand, they're an excellent example of needing technology solutions in a flexible manner. They need to scale as their demand scales, and they need to pay for that technology solution along with the scaling of their demand. The seasonal demand typically has demand cycles that vary throughout certain intervals, such as biweekly, monthly, holiday seasons, etc. A good example is the costume industry. I'm not much into costumes, but I envision that the costume purchases are probably flat at the beginning of the year. Pick up sometime in the summer for Comic-Con. If you've ever been down there, you see all those costumes down there. Probably slows down a little bit towards the end of the summer after Comic-Con. Big spike at Halloween time, and then I would imagine it slows down throughout the end of the year. These are my numbers. Don't quote any of these. I just put these together as an example of the seasonal demand. For a costume manufacturer, they would have to purchase on-premise solutions to meet the seasonal demand and get the compute resources to accommodate the maximum demand around that Halloween time, which is a very pricey solution. With a cloud solution, they would pay as they go and pay for what they consumed. So they would pay more during the summertime, July with Comic-Con, and in the fall, Halloween, and then less throughout the rest of the year. Another great example of flexible demand is Kelley Blue Book. Demand increases for Kelley Blue Book during payday cycles as people start to get quotes for cars and they want to get the Kelley Blue Book price. For Kelley Blue Book, they pay as they go. They pay as they consume compute resources as the demand cycles around paydays and the end of the month. As you may have guessed, Kelley Blue Book has been an early adopter of cloud solutions. Segueing to the openness and the Azure Marketplace. The Azure Marketplace is a store that opens up Azure to work on solutions that are provided by Microsoft as well as other third-party vendors. A great example of this solution is known as single sign-on. Single sign-on provides the ability to type in your user ID and password once and be authenticated to multiple solutions. We all are familiar with having separate user IDs and passwords for our banks or our personal email, work, or fantasy football. With single sign-on solutions, you get to have one user ID and one password, and the Microsoft Azure Marketplace allows this to occur with some of those solutions we see on the right, with Box, Citrix, Concur, Salesforce.com, so some of their partners and some of their competitors. The beauty of this with single sign-on is you only have to remember one user ID and password to access all these systems. As of early this morning, I took a picture of this. There are over 2,700 solutions that the Azure Marketplace single sign-on feature integrates with. That's right, Microsoft integrates over 2,700 different platforms for single sign-on. We've deployed Azure single sign-on for a number of our customers, and I can state that the customer satisfaction rates for this is very high. Switching to another aspect of Azure is the data backups and business continuity. I hit on that a little earlier as far as the truck and taking your data to the cloud. Now with Azure Disaster Recovery as a Service and Azure Site Recovery, you can do all of your backups and disaster recovery into the cloud. This is both a flexible and open solution because it allows you to easily copy things primary site, secondary site, cloud, and it doesn't have to be Microsoft data. This solution is rapidly replacing data backups to hard drives, to tapes, to optical devices, and etc. And it's another example of software eating the world. Segueing to pivoting on demand, a question for all of us is, what's happening tomorrow? Are you able to predict the future for your business and your marketplace? We all attempt to predict the future, but we know that the path of the future is rarely a straight line. We do our best with our vision, our budgets, our strategic plans, but we know that the end result is mostly a little bit varied than what we had planned. Moving to the cloud allows you to be flexible for what's going to happen tomorrow, whether you predict it or not. Let me take you on a little time-based journey. Who remembers Skype and who remembers Kazaa? They were developed together, and it seems like we were all using these solutions in the early 2000s. They were early-stage peer-to-peer applications and leveraged computing power on everybody's computers. 5 years later, eBay acquires Skype for $2.6 billion. Another half-decade later, Microsoft decides to acquire Skype for $8.5 billion. Personally, I think this is one of Microsoft's most significant acquisitions. 5 more years later to today, Skype for Business now runs on Azure. Who could have planned in the early 2000s that these peer-to-peer applications, including Skype, would now be running in the public cloud of Azure and be available to all of us as an enterprise solution for conferencing, instant messaging, and phone calls? A great example of where the future is going to take us and leveraging Azure and the cloud for that future. Now, taking this journey one step to tomorrow, I have a question for everybody on this presentation. Why do you have why do you have a phone in your office? Personally, I use the Skype mobile app on my iPhone. I've quit using my desk phone. All my calls ring to my Skype app on my iPhone, and I can connect my Skype to my phone calls via my 4G or 5G or 3G on my phone, or any Wi-Fi offering in my office, Starbucks, and more. And Skype continues to have more features added to it, including a feature called Skype Teams, which puts Skype more in direct competition with Slack. Again, another example of software eating the world. So how do you protect all of this? How do you protect your investment, all these new relationships, all of this stuff in the cloud? And if you move some or all your solutions to the cloud, how do you know that everything's secure? Investment protection right now is consisting of real-time updates, compliance, encryption, shared responsibilities, and more. For real-time updates, there are a lot of us on this presentation, myself included, who remember working nights and weekends updating systems. Typically, this resulted in the systems being offline and inaccessible, and the IT team working late hours and not necessarily being around during regular business hours to recover from working over the weekend. Cloud updates are the opposite. They occur in real time with the intention of keeping access to all the systems available at all times while these updates are occurring. Systems that are updated have less downtime, are more secure, which is good for your investment and your relationship to the cloud. From a compliance standpoint, listen, Microsoft gets it. Their compliance, their security is world-class. If not, they're going to be out of business. They're very transparent about their compliance, very transparent about their security. They've got features such as the Microsoft Trust Center, the Microsoft Digital Crime Unit, and more. Feel free to discuss with us afterwards. Let us know in the chat window. Compliance can be a very long topic and a little dry for a presentation, but we'd love to talk with you about it after this presentation. Encryption is another aspect of security for protecting your investment. Today's worker, tomorrow's worker, he or she's working on a mobile phone. He's working on a mobile phone. They're working on a laptop, a tablet. They're working a network anywhere. Could be at home, airport, a restaurant, a satellite. You don't know where they're going to be working. Encryption is the answer to this. It secures your data by enforcing compliance-based industry standards to ensure that no one else can see this data, replay this data, and hack into your information. Next, on shared responsibilities. Having your data in the cloud might ask you, what happens if my data is hacked? What happens if my data is lost? Microsoft addresses this with shared responsibilities for cloud computing. It's a paper contract that details the sharing of data responsibilities. Some of the responsibility is on Microsoft and some of the responsibility is on the customer. That's where FMT comes in. We can help you with that responsibility that lies with the customer. Microsoft also has a paper on security titled the Microsoft Azure Security Response in the Cloud, which addresses how Microsoft responds to these security events and what they do, their transparency of it, their reporting on it, and then any kind of service level agreement, adherence, and refunds to the customer. A relatively new feature that has been added is Lockbox. Lockbox, which when enabled, prevents Microsoft from accessing your data. So think of Edward Snowden, WikiLeaks, that information that got out. This is a direct response to that so that your information in the cloud is accessible to you and you only, and the vendor, Microsoft, does not have access to it. Like compliance, please contact us further to discuss. Shared responsibility, security, and such can be a little bit dry to talk about in a webinar. Next, we're going to discuss identity management. In parallel with protecting your investment is identity management, which we touched on a little bit earlier. Whoops. If you're using Office 365, which you should be, Office 365 plus Azure gives you the best options for identity management. If you're curious as to how important identity management is or isn't, I went to Bing, we're a Microsoft reseller, so I went to Bing, not the other main search engine, and just typed in the word identity. And as you can see here, this is what was suggested by Bing for identity. There's identity guard, theft, identity guard, Costco, maybe that's a job, I'm not sure, but you can see here identity theft, identity property, identity management is a key component of our lives, and it is one of the more frequent search terms. Many of us are familiar with identity theft, because we've all had a credit card stolen, somebody mimicking us or something like that with our identity. Moving to Azure, moving to Office 365 gives you better ability to manage your identity, your employee's identity, and as we hit on earlier, your employing the values of single sign-on. As you can see, single sign-on, if you look into the upper right, gives your employees single sign-on to access all their applications across all their devices with one consistent identity. That's one user ID and password. You can easily control who has access to your information and the levels of access they have based on their multiple levels of authentication. And a new feature that's been added recently is what is called the Azure Authenticator application, very similar to those old RSA Secure ID tokens that generated random passwords or PINs. The Azure Authenticator app does the same thing and increases your levels of authentication by requiring the information from the Azure Authenticator in addition to your user ID and password. So we're now starting to leverage our mobile devices, our iPhones, to prove who we are in a multi-factor aspect. The Azure Authenticator app is another example of software eating the world. I don't think I've seen one of those RSA Secure ID tokens for some time. So moving now towards the end of this presentation on what have we accomplished. Relationships. We discussed your relationships in the session and why you need to marry up to the Microsoft Azure Cloud. We discussed ways to maximize your Azure relationship opportunities. As a reminder, falling in love with the cloud gives you way more opportunities for success. We discussed real-world Azure Cloud examples and how these examples are good for you and your business. And we give examples to you on how to look good, which is important. Please contact FMT to further discuss Azure. And now we're going to move to a Q&A session. So the first question we have is it necessary to have on-prem Active Directory? That is a great question. We have customers that have both. We have customers that do have on-premise Active Directory, and we have customers that have Active Directory both on-premise and in the cloud. And then some of our customers are just leveraging it's Active Directory in the cloud through their Office 365 subscription. So we can contact you after this session here and discuss it more and see what's the best fit for your organization. We have another question. Let me get to this. Bear with me, I'm struggling. How do we manage and monitor servers systems in Azure? Microsoft Azure has a solution called the Operations Management Suite, which you can use to monitor and report on your applications and your services running on Azure. And Operations Management Suite also has an app that you can install on your iPhone, your Android, or your Windows phone, so you can do that monitoring from your mobile device as well. Next we have, if we wanted to move a server and a domain controller into Azure, so somewhat similar to our first question, about how long does that take? It doesn't take very long to move this into Azure. We've moved domain controllers in less than a day, usually the same day, and that's the beauty of Azure, and Azure also being your moving truck. You don't have to wait for infrastructure. You don't have to wait for UPS or Amazon Prime or anything to pick up or deliver. Basically, it moves as quickly as you have time to get your your data moved over there, and as fast as your bandwidth. And are there any more questions? I think that's it. Thank you everybody for attending today's session. My contact information is here on the bottom left, so feel free to give me a call or an email. And thanks again for attending today's session. We'll talk to you later.